Welcome to Asians in Art. We're here with Chinese-American actress and director Jo Mei. She's based in New York and LA. And she says that maybe she'll also think of London as a base as well in the future. And then we're also here with Chinese-Singaporean actor, also based in New York, Kenneth Lee. Both of you welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, first things first, what's the latest movie you've seen?
I just saw Wicked for Good yesterday.
Any good?
Oh.
It was really good. It was really good.
Are you a musical person?
Not really.
You enjoyed it, but you enjoyed it.
But I did enjoy it. I was surprised because it was dramaturgically so tight. Like, so many of the choices that were made for that film were so smart and so well thought out. From the costumes to the production design to the casting and how he's made a statement, a meta statement about representation and, you know, everything about that was so well thought out.
So something to see.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I enjoyed it because I am not a musical theater person.
Just following up after the first one, you know, you always wonder, is it going to be a letdown or just as good or better? So it seems like it's a recommendation to see it.
I enjoyed it. There were a couple plot holes, but I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Did you like the first one?
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I mean, you know, it's entertaining. It's an entertaining film.
What about you, Jo?
The last film I saw at the theater was the new Park Chan-wook movie, No Other Choice. It's very good. I think I've been seeing a lot of films out this year, but I feel like it's the first one that I saw that's I would call cinema rather than a movie made for whatever viewing platform you choose. Like it was very like edgy and imperfect, and there are actually things in the movie that I can say I've never seen in a movie before.
Oh, wow.
Which is so rare these days.
Wow.
Yeah, so I highly recommend it. It's like it's nice to see a cinematic work that's trying to accomplish something new and tell a story that's imperfect and unexpected and unusual. So
Okay, because I noticed when I saw, which I also thought was really cinema, was One Battle After the Next.
Me too. I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, I saw that too.
What did you think?
so that
There were really good set pieces in that. You know, I think the car chase,
Oh, it's amazing.
that was incredible.
That was
like,
new. That was totally new. I haven't seen the car chase like that, but it speaks to the landscape, right?
Yes, and it reminded me of like Hitchcock, like North by Northwest.
Yes.
You know, where the plane comes through. So
Yeah.
there was that undulating thing. It was like a roller coaster. It was so good. So well done.
So I'm going to take us all back to when, Jo, I'll start with you. When you started, we met in, Hong Kong. You were doing some news, but I had no idea that you even liked acting.
I think actually, yes, I did acting even when I was in middle school and high school in the US. And I got into a lot of really good Bachelor of Fine Arts programs. And then, of course, being Asian, I applied to the other half of the schools I applied to were liberal arts programs that would give me, your typical education. And I think I had a really hard time deciding at the time at 18, but ultimately sort of rationale went out and I went to a liberal arts program. And after that, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out if there was something else I'd rather do that could give me as much satisfaction as being in the arts and maybe a little more stability, like my parents kept harping on. And then I got this wonderful offer to work at CNN. It's actually the only real job I've ever had.
Everything else is fun.
Everything else was like more practical, but it was like the job that people say, oh, you get this after college and then that's your life path. So I thought, sure, I'll try it. And so, yeah, and that's when you had met me, I think, was me trying to figure out.
You grew up in a very artistic family, so you probably didn't have this issue, but I've always loved the arts, but my parents, being Japanese, really was against it and wanted me to study a real, have a real major and have a real job. So your parents never felt that way about your pursuit of the arts?
They never understood it. I'll give you an anecdote. When I was in junior college, we started a theater company. And I was in this production of Chekhov, The Cherry Orchard. And by that time, I'd already done a bunch of shows, and I was throwing a hissy fit with my parents and saying, you never come support me. You never come see my show. You don't know what I do. And, and all of that. And finally they were like, okay, we'll come see. So they bought tickets. They sat at the front row.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
And by the time I had come in onto the stage and did my scene, and I was like left and I peered through the curtain, they were going, "Oh no!"
Oh my God, no way.
But here's the thing, though, that taught me a great lesson, because ultimately they didn't stop me from going to NYU, going to New York, and pursuing they didn't understand it, because none of my family had an artistic bent. But they didn't have to understand it. And I think that's what has stuck with me since, like a lot of my friends who, it means so much to them that the people they love come to see our shows.
I'm not either. Yeah.
It's okay, because they understand, they don't understand it. And that's okay.
Right.
For me, it's my parents give me notes.
Managers.
They're my worst critic. So yeah, it's okay if they don't come see.
But so you both ended up in New York, but
Versus Asia.
yeah, because I was thinking you haven't gone back to Asia to act, but you've remained in the States. So there must be something here which is quite relevant to helping actors act, even though it's really tough work.
Well, I think for me, going back to Asia is not really an option. Like, I was too young when I left. I speak fluent Mandarin and some Cantonese that I learned, but it's the culture of each country's sort of entertainment industry is so unique to that culture, and tastes are very different, that I don't think I would actually fit in sort of the Asian entertainment industry at all. We don't fit types. We can talk about types, and types is such a thing in entertainment, especially for women.
Yeah. And I think, even when I was starting out, I mean, bear in mind, Singapore is only, I'm going to get this wrong now, 60 years. 60 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty young.
Yeah. And when I started in the theater in Singapore, I was in the first theater training program in junior college.
What year was that?
We're
We're not going to talk about. Yeah.
Singapore was 60 years old.
Again. So, yeah.
So I think opportunities weren't there as much. I think it's going to be, it can be misinterpreted the wrong way, but I felt like I had larger dreams and ambitions. And I felt like, to be the best that I could be, I needed to be with the best. And I thought, coming to New York and scaring the bejesus out of myself was probably going to be a learning experience. And I think it was. I was terrified when I first came here.
What was your first impression?
So I went into Tisch School of the Arts.
Right.
And that was like the movie Fame. It's like, down the hallway, you hear people playing music and you hear people dancing and the creaking floors and everything. And like everybody was so expressive and everybody was so comfortable, seemed so comfortable in their own skin. everybody was, oh, audition, yeah, let me go, and oh, I'll be the first to come out. I'll usually be the last person to volunteer for any answer or anything on stage. And I just looked at everybody, and it looked like they were so confident and so talented. And I was like, I think I am crazy for doing this. But by that point, my parents had said, okay, I had applied and everything. So it was either sink or swim. I was too stupid to be afraid at the time. Too stupid to be afraid.
That's the magic of youth, I think. It gives you some sort of energy that maybe as you sort of grow with time, you don't necessarily want to take those risks. Although we are doing this podcast. Yeah, exactly. So we haven't learned.
Our lights haven't fallen on our desk yet, so hey, we're doing well.
So you went to Tisch, and when you came to New York, you went to Juilliard. No.
Teaching style must be different, yeah.
Well, Juilliard is more, I think Tisch was an undergraduate program where you still had to take other courses to get your full prerequisites and everything. By the time I went to Juilliard, it's a conservatory program, so it's only acting, acting all day, nothing else, for 4 years. So that's the difference of a conservatory program, which is the kind of program I was sort of afraid to go into at 17, 18, because then I thought, then I wouldn't have any skills. Of if I had to get another job or something, what do I do? Or rather, my parents were asking that. So I'm glad I went into it after I had an undergraduate degree already. But plenty of my classmates who went into Juilliard straight from high school are doing very, very well. So
I'm going to be honest, I took acting classes at HB Studio in the Village last year. And I was terrified, but the teacher was very good in making a very safe environment, because I do feel like it's almost like therapy. And I one time I started crying out of nowhere, and I was just really surprised at myself. And every time I came out of class, came out of there kind of with joy, because it was just so therapeutic. But what do you get out of acting? Why acting? What's in it for you?
I'm sure rebellion had something to do with it. I think, as growing up in Singapore, there was a lot of censorship. So there was not a whole lot of freedom of expression at the time. And I think I'm sure that was part of it. I had a great teacher, mentor in Singapore, a drama teacher who introduced me to this world, and it felt right. I wish I had some brilliant, epiphany to share, but it just felt right, and I think there was also a healthy amount of fear around it that at the time I wanted to run into. And just to give you an idea of how masochistic I was, after the terrifying undergraduate, I decided to go to grad school for acting. I wanted more because I think I wasn't particularly ready for it. I wasn't. I foolishly thought that the fear would go away and I would feel ready. And that's how I should be. So after graduate school, I didn't feel like the fear had gone away. And so I was like, well, fear hasn't gone away, so I must not be ready.
It never goes away, does it? As an actor.
It never goes away. It's a daily thing.
How about you? Why?
It's interesting. I do think acting is something that chooses you rather than you choosing it. Or you might go into it thinking, oh, I'm choosing to be an actor, but there's something about the art and the craft of acting, and then there's the life of being an actor. So if you choose both, if you stay with both, it feels more like something that chooses you. It feels more like a calling rather than a choice at times. But I think the initial spark for most people, like when you take that first acting class or you get thrown up on stage in high school because, I don't know, the school was doing something, there is an adrenaline rush I think of it as you can fully be who you are rather than taking on something else. I think acting allows you to explore all aspects of yourself and humanity without the filter of like, if it was me, I wouldn't want people to see me this way. But in acting, you're taking on a character, you're examining an aspect of humanity that should allow a freedom in a way that we don't have in life.
And you're so right. Like, even when you were talking, I was like thinking, I think, growing up in a restrictive environment, like I felt like acting allowed me not to be judged and not to judge my characters, and to allow myself to imagine what it would be like to be, a survivor of trauma or a bully or, and all of those things without judging it and being in those shoes and arguing and fighting for those characters to be heard.
And this is within the context of theatre, right? Do you find that different shooting a TV series or on a movie?
Well, I think the challenges of being an actor is you're an interpretive artist. So sometimes your performances are as good as the role, the way it's written or how it fits into a story. And I do think that's often a big challenge for Asian actors in the Western world, Hollywood, UK system, whatever, where sort of there are certain roles they relegate Asian actors into because of lack of vision or imagination. I don't think it's a medium thing. I think what kind of roles are interesting or that we really want to feel we can bite our teeth into is across mediums.
So you don't think representation has improved? Has it gotten worse? Or
I mean, there's definitely been improvement in the conversations that are being allowed to happen at this point. I feel like the conversations have gotten a little further along. I think there's still a lot of ways to go.
I think there's actors or art reflects the world too. So I think there's an aspect of Asian Americans taking space that doesn't happen in general society. So that, if we want just to reflect reality, if you walk into any hospital in the US, it's majority Asian doctors, Asian nurses, Asian staff. But I would say of all the medical shows on television or streaming, there's almost no Asian representation at all. Right. Now, do you think those creatives, if they were to go to the hospital, if you look at who their doctors are they Asians? Probably. But why is it that they don't feel a need to reflect that? So is it like, should Asians like across the world just like demand more attention? I think that may be part of it. Sort of being more front-footed about the sort of acclaim we deserve. Mm-hmm. And that way we can, when like as actors or storytellers, we can even more strongly push for representation in a fictional world. And sometimes like during this time of representation matters, us fiction creators have said, yes, it's important for you to see us on television so people have role models, but that's not like, there already are role models in the world. So why are those actual role models? I mean, I have friends who work for the UN, who work in the NYPD, work in the hospitals, are like public defenders. Why is it that their contribution in the world is not being lauded and hence not even being represented in the fictional world?
Do you think it's because there aren't as many writers in the industry? Do you think it's because the writers who would like to write about Asian communities don't even know where to start?
I think that may be part of it. I mean, I see Asian creators who have a big hit that elevates them to the next level, but once they get to the next level, then their cast and co-workers are no longer Asian.
Yeah. Right.
And I also don't, I mean, it's not my place to limit anybody's creativity. So it's not like you can't do that. No, why shouldn't we be able to work with everybody? But then so that's almost a separate question as like, well, what is pulling up the next generation? What is expanding opportunities for people who so vocally supported you in the first place? It's hard, you know. I think it's something African American creators are so good at. Yeah. They're so conscious of creating more opportunity, of helping each other out, of expanding their influence. But somehow Asians are not so good at that.
So we're sort of don't want to stir the pot and you know, attract attention.
Sometimes it's especially,
you're correct about that.
I think, would you say it's on the Asian community to be more demanding, do you think? I mean, all people who have already arrived in a place where they're respected as an actor, and for them to help pave the way, do you think there needs to be more of that?
Yeah, I don't, but in a way that also, like, I don't mean it's only up to them.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just keeping the conversation alive is helpful enough, because again, it's so hard to make it to the next level, whatever that is, that I also don't want to bog anybody down by saying like, and then all you have to do, now you have to dedicate yourself to like only helping other people, because it's so hard for people already.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, I think maybe, I don't know how you approach, how you study acting and how to become a better actor. Do you think of it as, regardless of whether I'm Asian or Black or white, there's a basic thing where you can show that you're a great actor regardless. Do you approach it that way?
I want equality of opportunity, not necessarily of outcome. You know, it's one thing if I got to audition for something and I didn't get the part. It's quite another thing to never get that audition in the first place. And I think that comes, and then we go down that rabbit hole of, well, then what do you get auditioned for? What are those successful audition parts that you get auditioned for? And, you know, I mean, truth be told, unless it's an Asian, again, this is an institutional thing, what Joe was talking about, right? It's an institutional thing. What do I get auditioned for? More often than not, only if it's an Asian American playwright, or it's an Asian writer or some sort of creative, which goes back to what is their responsibility for lifting our voices up. But it's an institutional thing, because sometimes race has nothing to do with this part. And I don't get auditions for that, you know? So, I mean, I'll take the example of maybe Happy Ending. You know, I think it was, you know, there were a lot of arguments about, well, robots can be played by any other race. Well, sure. Then why wasn't Marjorie Prime about robots open to other casting, I guess, they will say, well, yeah, we need celebrities to sell tickets, which then goes into this vicious cycle of like, who gets to be celebrity, right? And that goes back to who gets those opportunities to get to be celebrities. And that goes again back to what Joe was talking about in terms of, well, it's a lot of burden on the Asian Americans who have made it, quote unquote, to then put their careers on the line and say, well, I won't do this project if there are no, if there's no other Asians involved. And I mean, it puts an unfair burden on them that I don't believe the dominant hegemony would experience.
Well, an Asian is very
Broad,
diverse.
Yeah, it's very, very diverse. Yeah. So my dad saw you both in the workshop of Unsinkable, which hasn't come out yet. The playwright is still working on the play. Perhaps, Joe, you can talk about your theatre background.
Well, I did a bunch of things, but yes, I think the benefit of being in New York is coming out of a school like Juilliard, then casting people from theaters get to see you and know you. And one of the first shows I did was a play called You for Me for You. That was a co-production between Mei Theatre in New York and then Woolly Mammoth Theatre in Washington, D.C. by Mia Chung. I love that play.
What's the story about?
It's about, it's got magical realism elements to it, but the source of the story is about two North Korean sisters who try to escape, and one gets stuck in the in-between world, and one makes it to South Korea.
Oh, wow.
But it's not what, neither places are what they expect. And it was really, really fun play. And then they went on to have a production in London as well, which I wasn't a part of. So yeah, that was my first theater job out of school that got me into the stage actors union.
When did The Salesman happen?
Salesman 之死, which was
It was last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 years ago. Oh, time flies.
Yes, it does.
Maybe a year and a half. We'll split the difference.
Yeah.
It was produced by Yangtze Rep here in New York. And we won the Obie for Best Production.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Extraordinary show. I saw it.
Oh, thank you. And it was based on Arthur Miller's memoir about him directing Death of a Salesman in Beijing in the 80s. And Rebecca Miller came to see the play. And
You were in the lead role.
I was the role of the interpreter.
Which focused on the interpreter,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
The story.
Yes, it
Focused on
took
the
them
interpreter.
years to adapt the story because they have this fantastic book by Arthur Miller about his experience, but then they thought about, well, why center on Arthur Miller, and how do you find an actor to play Arthur Miller, and we're an Asian American company. And then they found the woman who was his interpreter. She was assigned to him the whole time, and she's living in Canada now. So the writer and director flew there, interviewed her, and realized actually the story is the interpreter. Mm-hmm. So it was a very theatrical show, because you see a play within the play, and then you see actors trying to work in their own language, but about a story that's so quintessentially American. And then the woman who's in between trying to help everybody understand each other, and yet she herself has very limited understanding, one, of theater, two, of American culture.
Let's go back to your craft. How do you get into that role?
Oh, gosh. I read Arthur Miller's book. I saw video. There's actually archival footage uploaded on the YouTube of the Chinese production, and interviews with actors who were in that production later on. And I watched all the footage that they had interviewing this woman who was the interpreter. And then you read the play, very little of that is in the fictional work of the play. It's just sort of underneath material for you as an actor, which is such a
bringing
research.
history, bringing history to the role.
Yeah. None of it is actually word for word in the play, but it just helps inform the work one does, making these people real.
Was it the same for you, Kenneth, when you acted in The Great Leap?
Well, yes. And I had actually a lot of time to do research because that happened during COVID. And I flew into Portland where I was doing the production. And then I was diagnosed with COVID.
Oh, no.
And we had a three-week rehearsal process. And at the time, because COVID, you had to be homebound for 2 weeks. Essentially, I had 2 weeks to basically do all the research, which was really kind of a luxury. But then the final week, we had to rush blocking and basically mounted the show in 1 week.
Oh my
So
gosh.
maybe we just talk a bit about that word blocking. What does it mean? Just for the viewers our listeners who don't understand theatre so well.
Blocking, I guess it's where you stand on stage, to catch the light, to tell a pictorial story, to establish spatial relationships on stage so that the story is being told. In The Great Leap, which is really ostensibly about basketball and a basketball team from America who gets to play in China. It was all about spatial relationships, right? It was all about, so now we're going to have a basketball court and we're going to figure out relationships, with the father and the son and the coach and the sister, and what those spatial relationships mean to each other. And that is essential. A lot of times people think, oh, acting is just about memorizing lines but it's also about putting yourself in space so that when the audience watches it, they're not just listening to the relationships, they're also witnessing how people move in the space with each other.
When you don't rehearse with each other, do you practice in front of a mirror? How do you rehearse the lines? No, you don't.
No. It's one of the hard things about doing film and TV. It's like you have to see yourself in the theater. The wonderful thing about theater is that I don't have to look at myself, and I would rather not.
Well, when I direct, I say memorize things by rote, which means don't put any meaning in how you memorize anything, because then you get stuck. So then you're actually not receiving what the actors are giving you, but you're acting on your own with what you had practiced. And that's when there is dead theater to me.
So that must have been particularly hard because you were, fenced off because you had COVID. So it's an interesting situation, right? So how did you transition from practicing in isolation to actually, when you first went on the stage to do your rehearsal, how did it feel? Perhaps I should ask that.
That felt very live.
In that? Where are you?
Yes, and then we were able to take off the masks when we were in rehearsal, but then on stage, and then once we got off stage, we had to put the mask back on. But it felt thrilling. I had to reorganize the way I approach acting just because of that. But one of the things that was wonderful about that particular experience was, in the absence of what Joe was talking about, which was, talking in relationship with each other, I was able to refine in the 2 weeks that I was at home. In acting, people call it like intentions, what you wanted to do, what you wanted to achieve in a scene, what the stakes are, sort of building the stakes of a scene. And I was able to invest that. So rather than memorizing lines as Joe said, like without preconceived ideas. I was memorizing lines in my gut, as in what my body was crying out for. And in The Great Leap, which is a story about an estranged father and son that hasn't seen each other for years.
Did they know they even exist?
They didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't but the son had a nagging suspicion and wanted to know why he had been abandoned by his father, who remained in China. And so there's a lot of unspoken turmoil or trauma involved. And I was able to invest in that. And so when the lines came out, they were charged. And so when we had 1 week, the stakes were even higher. Like, how do I avoid humiliating myself on stage? It was a great motivating factor, but wasn't all of it. And
So is there something as being over prepared?
Yes.
So what does that look like? Well, how do you tell when an actor is over prepared?
I think there's I think we all feel it. Say you've memorized something, or you're trying to think of something in conversation, and so you're going through the list in your head as you're even, say, buying groceries. You have a list, and you go to the grocery store, and someone helping you, and what would you like? And you're thinking into your head, oh, I need eggs, blah, blah. There's something like, so your eyes go in rather than out, right? So we can all feel that when is somebody actually looking at me, or they're like thinking about something else. So there's a sense of, if you're over-prepared or under-prepared and you're trying to think of your lines and not paying attention to other people, or if you're over-prepared and thinking about, oh, what was that thing I decided to do on this line that I thought looked really cute?
You can kind of tell.
You can tell. You can tell when something is canned.
I've heard that it's you're acting rather than being.
Yes.
yes.
That's it.
Yeah, I think so. I think like somebody who's over-prepared is like, I'm going to do this no matter what you do. And it's like, wait a minute. Yeah. I did not give you that laugh line. Yeah. And they're like, no, but I'm going to make that my laugh line anyway. Yeah. And
so
that's...
on stage, it's almost like does the acting change then? Because, I mean, each performance is a new performance.
Ideally, it should. I think that is what theater is. It's live, right? It's always a dance. And you're always paying attention. If you're present and you're in the moment, you're always paying attention to what that person's giving you. And if you're live, then that person has no right to expect the same thing from you either. And that's what's exciting about it. I think that's like, yeah, that's that dance. Mm-hmm. And with the best, most live actors that you get to play with, the not knowing is what is frightening. And also going back to what I talked about, like, being a masochist, it's what I live for.
Exhilarating at the same time.
That's where the adrenaline comes from. Right. When somebody's over-prepared, the scene is dead. Mm-hmm. It goes on with or without you. Right. And I'm like, then why am I here? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Corinna, do you find that when you used to do interviews?
I was just going to say, when you mentioned about that, it's, I think you have interviewers that have all the questions in their mind first, and they just want to go through that list of questions, but they're not really listening to their interviewee, their guest. Because they could answer, you're expecting a certain answer, but maybe they might say something completely different and throw you off. But in the moment, you have to be able to adapt and improvise. And if you're not listening, and if you're just dead set on doing only your questions and expecting a certain answer, then it's dead.
That you just gave a top-notch acting lesson.
Thank you so much. I'm still learning.
Acting guru.
But Corinna's also a singer. Can I just throw this in here? Was it the same when you were singing, when you did your live performances?
I think with jazz, it's a similar thing. It's all about being in the moment. And when I first would go on stage and sing, you want to be perfect, right? And that's not the way to approach it, because you're not listening to your musicians and you're not reacting in the moment. So I think life in general, is like that, right?
It's jazz. I mean, you just said it's jazz.
Life is jazz,
right? And we take the riffs when they come. Yeah. if they come, and I think that's the best in theater. That's when you can tell, you can see a show and you can tell when the sparkle or the electricity that's happening between two people. And then when you see another show and it's like, well, nothing's really happening. They're talking about something but they're not talking with each other. And then that's when you're like, yeah, that show's not working for me.
Jo, what has been your favorite role?
Oh gosh. I have to say I've been very lucky that every single play I've done, every single role I've done has been great for me. I've liked the experience so much. My boyfriend helps me with auditions, and he says if I don't like the role, if I don't like the play, no matter how much intellectually I think I should get this, I want this job, I won't get it, because there's something in my instrument that just doesn't actually convince myself even that it's worth my time and energy. No matter how many times I try very hard to get every single job. Sometimes but the ones I do get have been all wonderful, complex experiences.
That's the other thing I wanted to ask about, because you, as actors, you have to constantly audition for roles, and we don't always get those roles, right? So how do you deal with the rejection?
First of all, I think every role that I get to audition for is an opportunity to expand. And I love that. I love the idea that, even if I didn't get the part, I was able to expand my concept of who I was and what I was able to do. And that's been great. But to answer your question more directly,
You don't get depressed when you don't get a role?
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like just recently, I got one that I thought nailed it and then didn't get it, right?
It's always those.
That's a kiss of death.
The one, yeah.
That's the kiss of death. Yes. But we knew that signing in to the job, and that's part of the course.
Or we learn. We learn. That's just like something as actors you
don't take it personally.
You do. Oh, okay. You still do. Especially when you think you nailed it or you're perfect for the part, and they won't even give you an audition. How can you not take that personally? But
How can you not take that personally?
yeah, how do you not?
Yeah.
It's almost about how do you hold on tightly, let go lightly. It's such a useful turn of phrase as actors, because when you do want something, you have to commit fully. Like there's nothing else in the world, and it would change your life, and you would love to do this part, and you've done research even just for the audition, and you're not paid for any of that time.
Yeah.
And then when you don't hear anything, which is most of the time, you don't even know why you didn't get it or who got it until it comes out. So as soon as it's done, you have to send it into the wind and let it go. Yeah, it's a constant practice.
Yeah, I have a friend who goes into audition, and then once he's out, he tosses that script into the bin, and as sort of like a ritual.
That's when we had in-person auditions.
Yes.
I can walk 30 blocks afterwards to let it
nowadays
go.
they can do virtual too, right?
Virtual, or you're just taping on it.
Self-tapes, yeah.
Self-tapes. That's
Self-tapes.
Oh, so you're doing self-tapes and that's it, and you send it in via email, and
It's like
just saying your lines, and there's no one else speaking off camera with you.
you have somebody read.
Oh, there's someone else reading.
Yeah.
okay.
So it's really like messages in a bottle that you chuck into the ocean
Yeah.
and hope somebody finds it.
Do you both have agents?
Yes.
Manager.
Agents and manager.
That's another thing about this job. There are so many in between people, between you and the job itself, and you and the work itself. There's your reps, managers, agents, lawyers, and then there's the people on the side of the job that's in between them. So casting people and whatever assistants, all those things. There's so many layers of separation between you and the work itself.
And it doesn't have to be, I guess. I'm hearing that's what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you blow up on social media these days,
True. I mean,
people find you.
Yeah, it's true. When you have like 2 million followers, how could you not?
a whole different
You will not be denied.
But whether you will last
Yeah.
is another issue, right? And
Yeah. There's another thing that I wanted to add to the conversation just before in terms of like, dealing with rejection, if you don't mind. Because just what Joe was saying. And bringing it back to, again, Asian American actors, sometimes the opportunities are not that much. So every audition gets exponentially more important. And the stakes are that much higher that you book because you don't often get those opportunities. And that certainly plays into, I'll speak for myself, my thinking. It's like, oh, well, I don't get so many opportunities. So when I do get an audition, I better damn well nail it. And then you still don't get it. So, you know what I'm saying? So then you go to your therapist.
and take yourself off from the cliff.
Absolutely, yes.
So out of all the roles that you've played, Kenneth, which one do you like the most?
Oh God, it's like asking Sophie's Choice, right? Particularly because, Joe just said, every role that you get, you like sort of hold them like you're a little baby and you're like, you give them 110% of your voice. And so I've enjoyed every single one of them for various reasons. Whether it's because I'm expanding my notion of what I can do or expanding notions of who I am or just enjoying the process. But the process that I really enjoyed the most, I would say, was The Machine. Was this play a while ago that was at the Manchester International Festival. It was produced by the Donmar Warehouse, and then we brought it into the Park Avenue Armory. First of all, it was like an 8-week process. Which is
that long? Okay.
It's a luxury. And part of what was fun was because we were all roped in to figure out how to... Okay, so the play is written by Charman, who wrote Bridge of Spies eventually. He was writing Bridge of Spies while he was doing this.
Right.
And the play was about the moment in time when Garry Kasparov, who is the chess champion of the time in the late 80s, early 90s, had a world-touted chess match, with a machine named Deep Blue.
Right.
And the playwright posited that was the moment when humans ceded power to the machine.
Oh, it's hugely profound, especially for nowadays, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I played Dr. Shu, who created Deep Blue. So sort of like the chief antagonist in some ways.
Right.
And we were faced with the challenge of how to make chess interesting on stage to regular audiences. But also we were booked to be at the Park Avenue Armory, which is 1 square block. How do you make a small chess
Intimate story.
intimate story and stage it in a 1 square block?
It's a very big space.
It's a very
How
big...
did that happen?
It happened in Manchester as well. And the director had a great idea to make it into a stadium.
Wow.
And we had 4 jumbotrons mounted in the ceiling.
Wow.
And Josie Rourke, the director, set it in a television studio stadium.
Oh, wow.
And so there were cameras, and then the action was projected. Our faces were projected on the jumbo screen.
Right.
But, and it was like a tournament. And,
Like the gaming things that they do these
exactly,
days. Right.
like the gaming thing. But then it also she was so brilliant because she then universalized that story. It was like man versus machine.
Yeah.
And of course, there was that whole element about, Garry Kasparov was a dissident from Russia. So he was always paranoid, and he was a conspiracy theorist about, there's somebody in Deep Blue and they're trying to, take away my crown. And, there's all this backstory about, and migrants and, how. So that process, 8 weeks, just to put that all together. She was not only directing a play, but she was directing the cameras. She was, it was one of the richest and most, it was really rich. I mean, it was wonderful because they all had resources.
Kenneth, you went into regional theatre acting when you graduated. Mm-hmm. And one of the first few plays that you did was a Shakespeare play. Is that correct?
After I graduated?
Yeah, that was the American...
The American Players Theatre that was in Wisconsin. And...
The founder
of the American Players Theatre is Randall Kim, who is the keymaster in The Matrix.
I had no idea he was so familiar with Shakespeare.
He was a Shakespeare, monster for Shakespeare. He loved Shakespeare. He loved classical texts. And, one of the, there was this famous story because he came to a conservatory hour for us at one point. And he shared this story about how he went into... an audition for my alma mater, ACT, for Tartuffe, for the lead role of Tartuffe, in full makeup. And they were so impressed by him, they gave him the job. And on the first day of rehearsal, he showed up without his makeup. And people were like, we didn't order takeout. And he was like, no, I'm here to play Tartuffe. So that was Randall Kim. I can't speak for the veracity of the story, but, he shared that with us during conservatory hour. And I didn't really know that he was the founder of ABT until I actually went there. And when I was working there, I found out, how dedicated they were to Shakespeare. Yeah. How dedicated they were to... unearthing the language of Shakespeare and what that meant, we're talking about Spring Green, Wisconsin, population at the time 1,600, wedged between Madison, Wisconsin, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and rural farmland, and he was able to drum up so much passion and ownership and love for this theater. As far as I can remember, they had a whole summer season of 3 plays in rotation, and they were almost always full house. Mm-hmm. So by the time I was there, Randy was no longer an artistic director, but it was David Frank, and we were able to do a lot of Shakespeare there, and they were so dedicated to the work. David Frank was this one of the best Hamlets I've ever seen, and I've seen quite a few, was by this local actor named James DeVita. And it was an outdoor theater space. It was bounding left, right. It was Hamlet outdoors. It's hard, and he made sense of everything. They were so dedicated to the work, so dedicated to getting Shakespeare right. I was in this production of Two Gentlemen of Verona. I played Speed, and there's traditionally this long comedic exchange between Speed and Lance, and David would be like, "No, we're not cutting it." Most theater companies would cut it. And they were like, no, we're not cutting it. We're not going to underestimate our audience. We are going to make it clear for them. and they're going to enjoy it. They're going to last. And so we dug into the text to figure out how these jokes would make sense to a contemporary audience. That was their dedication to Shakespeare. The dedication to, like, figuring out, and, David Frank, God rest his soul, was very dedicated.
Well, there was a time when theater brought communities together.
Yes.
A good production brings people together.
Yes.
And that's what regional theaters did.
Yes. People drove.
Cities, towns.
Yeah. People drove in from Chicago to Spring Green, Wisconsin. I mean, this was for all intents and purposes, a rural town. And they appreciated and understood Shakespeare. And they kept coming back in droves. And they're still doing great, solid work.
Yeah. Which brings me to the next question is how, does acting nowadays compare to maybe, I wouldn't say all acting, but, with the rise of reality TV and with TikTok, what changes do you see?
Appreciation for craft. Dedication to craft also.
Respect for the craft. I think commitment to it.
Playing small parts, building up your resume, experience, instrument over time.
Yes.
Giving time to the craft.
And understanding that giving time to craft is like giving time to yourself to grow and experience things and make mistakes and fall. And, in terms of respecting it as a profession, as a job, as something that we do with rigor, that we investigate with the same passion that we do, a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is, that it's a trade.
Yeah. So why we both why we both chose to get training for the craft of acting is I think we have an appreciation for being a transformative actor, to play roles that investigate the depth of our own selves, hidden parts of ourselves, as well as people we see on the street that seem so different than ourselves. Like, how do you take that on and transform? That's the kind of acting I appreciate. But nowadays, that might not get you a job.
No, yeah. I mean, the idea that, you transform me, and maybe this harkens back to my childhood, how uncomfortable I was in my own skin. And I love the fact that I could investigate, and figure out what it literally felt like to be in somebody else's shoes, to walk like somebody who had a monkey on their back in their lives, or to figure out like what it would feel like to be an athlete, or to be a person that's downtrodden, and to live in those shoes and see how that transforms me, that the path that was not taken by Kenneth Lee, right? And imagine that that sort of transformation was what I lived for. It's kind of like Meryl Streep, right? Like, you see her transform from Margaret Thatcher to Sophie's Choice, to, speaking Polish, speaking Dutch, and out of Africa. Like, the fact that if she were not a celebrity, you could recognize, you couldn't recognize who she would be from film to film to film, that it was actually the same person. And that kind of appreciation for transforming and still be able to find a kernel of truth within to speak from, that's what I lived for. And I think the industry has changed a little bit.
A lot.
Yeah. I think they're not. I think the thinking is, why have somebody, play, a wrestler or a jogger or a runner or a marathon artist, when we can find a real wrestler to cast,
So what do you, recommend for people who are going into the industry nowadays?
I don't know. I wish I had kernels of wisdom to share.
Do you think it's a great profession to go into?
I think it's an admirable profession because of how much it demands of you to live outside of your comfort zone.
But it is a brutal profession.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Yes.
Because of the amount of rejection, and unlike a musician, you are your instrument.
Yes.
You walk into an audition, a meeting, being like, and me? And choose me? Me, please?
Yeah.
And yet with some self-respect.
Right. But you put yourself on the line. There is no, this is my work and this is me. No, you are your work. And I think that is why it is hard to not take rejection personally. But having said that, there's a lot of work that you have to do as a person, which I welcome. I think, in the beginning of our conversation, I talked about how masochistic I was, right? Running into challenges, running into my fear. And because if you run into that and you go through it, there's something else on the other side that expands you. And I think as an artist, there's nothing greater reward for me than it is to seek expansion, superseding your idea of who you are and what you can do.
So you just need to start from somewhere.
Yes. I think if you are an aspiring actor, you are curious about the profession, what you'd have to do is just do it. Put on a show, take a class, do some scene study, try it. Go on auditions. Oh my goodness. See if you like that.
Put yourself on the line a little bit. Like, there's one life you get to live. Why not max it out? And I would say if you're Asian, do it. We need the numbers.
We need more of you out there.
Yes, we
Really
need the
do
numbers.
it. Yes.
We need the numbers. We need the representation. We need the voices, and we need the perspective.
Writers,
Directors,
Producers. Oh my goodness.
And make yourself known and make yourself counted. I think we need to demand that.
Yes.
We're not, as Asians, I think we're much more reticent to demanding to be seen and heard. But if you're that person that would like to demand, this is the profession for you. Demand that.
Well, thank you so much. That's such an optimistic note to end on. Demand it.
Yes.
So thank you, Joe, and thank you, Kenneth, for coming on to Asians in Art.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.